teenagers, men versus women, and sexual minorities, not forgetting the college students. But the rates are usually higher in teenagers. Today we are looking at self-harm in adolescents. And joined with me is Mr. Olong. Kindly tell us about yourself.
I'm the founder of an organization called Strides of Hope Foundation. Many of the people call it So Hope.
Yeah.
And what we do is we aim at empowering persons with mental disorders in hospitals, in prisons, and in communities. And over the period of some years, we've been able to reach out to many people.
Yeah. Okay, wow. So good to have you on this show.
Thank you so
much. And I'm
Levson,
your host every day. So, should we refer to you as a mental health professional?
I am more comfortable with a mental health activist, probably one or in a couple of months or maybe a year or two I can be a mental health professional.
Okay, so good. So you deal with the people with mental health issues in the community?
Sure.
All right, that's good. So a lot of mental health activists and professionals like you have seen children and teenagers and adolescents harm themselves. Would you call this a suicidal issue?
It's not necessarily suicidal per se, but it is, personally, I think self-harm is the climax of it's a form of, self-harm is, it's not that anyone who self-harms is suicidal, but the climax of self-harm is suicide. So it's like the top of it all. The worst you can do to yourself is take your own life.
Okay, so is there a physical behavior attached to self-harm?
Sure, there are behaviors. Actually, the definition of self-harm is purposeful injuring of yourself. And this comes in different forms. One is cutting. I know of a friend who had several mental health challenges, and one of the ways of relieving her pain was cutting. So if you looked at her hands, they were all full of scars. And the second other way that people do self-harm is burning themselves. Someone will just get a lighter or a matchbox and then keep burning themselves. And some other ways they do overdose of not very strong medication, but that they do that. However, any form of self-injury, whether minor or severe, is self-harm, because the end result of it could lead to, say, suicide, and someone can lose their life.
So in this sense, a person who does tattoo, who overdoes tattoo, is not doing self-harm?
It might necessarily not be. If his aim, if the motive of doing the tattoo is to relieve emotional pain, because there is a cycle of self-harm. It starts with emotional suffering or distress, and then the next stage is the emotional overload. You feel it's too much, you cannot handle it, and then you go into a state of panic, and as a means of dealing with that, you resolve into self-harm. So when you get done with the self-harm, you only get temporary relief, and then you feel the grief and the shame, and the cycle goes back. So emotional distress, emotional overload, a state of panic, then self-harm itself, a bit of relief, and then shame, and it goes. So every single time this urge comes in, someone thinks, oh, I think I should cut myself. So when they do that, they feel a bit of that relief. Later on, they begin to feel the shame of doing what they've done.
So let me take it from you again. Excessive use of pills, is it also part of self-harm?
It could be.
It could be.
It could be.
So does that also take us to drug abuse?
Exactly. Some of the reasons as to why people self-harm is use of drugs. So if someone began to use drugs, their chances of getting into self-harm is much more easy. And it's also one of the signs that you can seek out for. If someone began to, say, use drugs, then their chances of getting into self-harm is there. Really the potentials are there. Sure.
I think you've wrapped it all up, because you've taken us to our next question of what does self-harm look like, and you've really described it. Now, allow me to ask, why do you think children indulge in this behavior?
Drawing it from the cycle, there are is a problem why a child does that.
Yeah.
They are emotional, they are suffering, say.
Yeah.
And so they want someone to understand them.
Yeah.
But if there is no one to understand them and they try out something, say cutting themselves, and they feel a bit good,
Yeah.
they are most likely going to get that way. Now, one of the reasons as to why the children or the adolescents engage in this, we already mentioned, this is drug abuse,
Yeah.
alcohol and substance abuse.
Yeah.
When you do that, you are likely to end up that way. The other thing could be unfavorable environments.
Yeah.
Maybe there is a lot of troubles in the home or a lot of troubles in school. Just that, so a child will isolate themselves and they will try to figure out how they can get fine, and one of the many options could be self-harm.
Oh, okay. So, is there something we can do? Because we have a lot of adolescents who don't have parents, let me
True.
say. Some lost a mother or a father, and because of that emotional distress, they started this practice. How can we help them before we go into what can parents do?
All right.
Yeah.
Allow me put this out. It's said that about 10% of young people engage in self-harm.
Oh.
So that's pretty a good number.
Yeah.
And some other individuals argue that it's not only 10, but they think it's even up to 20%.
Yeah.
So in a class, you might find out like maybe 2 of the students
Oh, yeah.
are engaging in self-harm. Now, what can we do in this? Number one, since we realize that one of the causes of self-harm is emotional distress, as people out here, one is we need to create a curiosity in ourselves to understand exactly what this self-harm is. We need to understand what self-harm is. There are many myths that cover self-harm. I'll give a few.
Yeah.
The first one could be it's a form of showmanship. You are seeking for attention. I want guys to recognize that I am there. So what am I going to engage in? I'm going to burn myself or I'm going to cut myself.
Yes.
That guys will be like, whoa, this guy is, no? But it's not that. That's just a myth. And the other myth that people put out there is that self-harm is only for girls. But it's not really true. Even men do that.
You are so true, because I was reading somewhere, and the rate of men versus women, men practice a lot of self-harm than women. Yes,
That's interesting.
But please go
So
on.
a number of guys think self-harm is a girlish thing, but it's not true. Even the men themselves do that. And we made mention of this. The other myth is that self-harm is, all people who do self-harm are suicidal. It's not really true. It's not really true. And so we need to understand what self-harm is. It's basically a purposeful behavior of injuring yourself as a means of relieving emotional pain. It's as a means of relieving emotional pain. Now what we need to do is, one, we need to try and create an atmosphere or an environment where the young people are able to openly speak to us. We need to create a relationship. Let me break this into just 3 things, and I think this would be very helpful. One, we need to create relationship with these young people. We need to make them feel that we care for them and that they matter. When we are done with creating relationship, we need to continually and purposefully interact with them, try to seek out what's going on. And the third point is we need to create activities that make us engage with them in a way that we are able to see more than what they would be willing to reveal to us. So say an example, I have a group of, say, 10 young people that I'm working with. So I create that relationship, and then we get into an interaction of, say, okay guys, we are going to learn about this thing or that thing, and later on I create an activity, probably say, you know what we are going to be doing next week? All of us are going to go out and do community work. Now in there is when you can observe interesting behaviors of these young people. There are certain things that will just come out of them. They will not try to censor it. but you'll just sit back as you're doing these activities. You get to understand. These you're able to see the symptoms of very many things.
Okay. Well, so picture this.
Mm.
I have an adolescent who's watching right now.
Yes.
They don't have a guardian at home.
Yes.
They have probably they've been able to find data somewhere somehow, and they're watching us right now. What do you tell them? And they're going through some emotional distress. What do you tell them if they were on the verge of, doing self-harm?
Mm.
Yes. What is that word you can speak to them?
What I would tell an adolescent out there, that self-harm might seem as a solution,
Yeah.
but it is not a solution. What you will gain is very temporary satisfaction, and your life is more than gaining temporary satisfaction. What you could do is, when you are at the verge or you feel the urge of harming yourself, you could talk to someone.
Yeah.
You could get online and look out for self-help on-site websites and learn something. You could choose to do something creative. I would throw this to you out there, that when you get this urge of, say, harming yourself, give yourself 5 minutes. It's called, I call it the 5-minute principle. Just give yourself 5 minutes and see if you will still have the urge of doing that.
Well.
And feel free to talk to, if you are, to your teachers, to your religious leaders, say pastors, to your friends, to someone you respect and someone you think you can.
No.
You could also seek out for counseling. There are people out here who would be very much happy to work with you and see that you overcome this urge that could lead into something worse.
Well, that's good. That's good. So, allow us to take us through. At what point should a parent or a guardian realize that this child of mine or this friend of mine needs mental help? At what point? Because I believe we all know self-harm is a mental health issue. Yes. So what's that point that a parent should realize, oh, my child needs help. They need mental health. We've seen signs of numbness, anxiety disorder. Should these be signs enough for a parent to realize that they need mental health solution, or is there a stage?
All right, I would start from here. That one, self-harm in itself is not a mental illness.
Okay.
But it is greatly linked to mental illness. A number of individuals who suffer from mental illnesses often, or their chances are higher to take the path of self-harm. Why? Because they are experiencing tremendous emotional distress, tremendous, and this comes in a form that the people around them do not understand what an individual is basically going through. Now, when does, or how can a parent, at what point can a parent suggest to their adolescent child to seek out for this? One, as parents, we have observed our children very well. We know them. We know when they are very happy.
Yeah.
We know when they are very angry. Yeah. We know when they are sad. We know all these kinds of things. Now, there is the default of your child. Probably your child is an outgoing person, say. He's always, when he gets back at home, he's like, hi daddy, good morning. They tell you their day. They do all those kinds of things. So when you begin to observe that this child is not doing some of the things that they naturally do, or you have seen them doing, then you could suspect and say, I think something must not be okay. That's when you can choose to reach out to them. If you wait for them to come to you, that might not work out.
True.
So what you need to do is, when you observe that your child's default behavior is not as it's supposed to be, say they've begun to withdraw themselves, then those are basically signs. The second thing is if this child has begun to use substance, if they've begun to abuse substance, their chances of going the path of self-harm is very high.
Yeah.
The other one could be, in addition to them, when they are depressed, say, depression is they cease doing the activities they enjoy very much. If your child, say, enjoyed playing games, or they enjoyed going out and playing football, or they enjoyed going out with family, and then suddenly they say, no, I'm not going to go, I just want to be by myself. So those are some of the signs and symptoms.
Me time.
Exactly. If it's excessive, like, oh, it's not the normal thing that your child has always been doing, then you can suspect. And then create this, build a relationship with them, purposefully create interactions with them and engage in activities that will help you expose some underlying motives and behaviors that otherwise you would not be able to observe in a control if you sat down and said, tell me how it is. Some of those kids won't be able to do those things for you.
And again, if you're a parent and you're watching this and you realize your kid wants to do self-harm or self-injure themselves, don't panic. Relate with the child.
Exactly.
Don't cry. It's a sign of weakness. Don't cry. And don't tell them, oh, if you do this, I'm going to kill myself. Please don't do that. No, no. Try to relate, like you said, Mr. Olong. Try to relate with the child. Tell them, is there anything I can do to exactly your better? Exactly. Yes. Is there something you're going through and I can be of good help? Do you want to postpone this? Can we talk about this before you do this? Relate with the child. Yes, as a parent. So I really want to thank you for today. And I hope to have you once again. I hope to end our discussion here. Yes, yes. And if you're a parent, you have what to do. If you're a child, you have what to do. You're a teenager. We believe that this is a comprehensive solution. So, welcome to the Growth Catalyst once again. Catch you later in our next episode. We love you so much. Bye-bye.